we've been talking a bit about Luxon, about what's going on with Luxon today and what we're going to talk about. So let's have Squiz. I've got a couple of clips from him. The first one is not necessarily one we're going to focus on, but because I grabbed it, I thought it's quite important, because emergency room doctors are reporting that people are dying in corridors and in like the car park of hospitals. I don't know if you can measure society by how we treat the least. Probably you could say the same about how we treat the sickest. Yeah. And people dying in corridors doesn't sound like a particularly good result for anyone. Let's have a listen to how the Prime Minister responded to that question today.
One News reported that ED doctors are saying patients are dying in corridors and in car parks, waiting for care. This requires urgent action. So what is the government doing?
Well, the government's put in $17 billion in the first year. We've put another 7% increase, 6% per person in New Zealand into healthcare this year. So there's plenty of money going in.
Just remember, whānau, don't necessarily believe the hype, right? Because yes, they've put in more than any other government. That's because population grows and you have to put in more. It's not like a look at us being amazing, we've put in more. Like in 1982, they put in the most there's ever been in 1983. And in 1996, they put the most there's ever been in 1997. That happens every year. And the thing that I thought about Luxon today, both in this conversation and others that are going to play out, is it doesn't matter how much you put into something. If it's still not enough, it's still not enough.
Yeah.
So saying, hopity, big number, doesn't matter if that big number is still not enough to solve the problem. And that seems to be happening with when we're talking about nurses' pay rates, teachers' pay rates, the medical system, blah, big number, still not enough. Do you want to jump in before we keep going, Jordan?
I just think this man's a champion at patting himself on the back for doing the bare minimum. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, he's so double-jointed, he could be Cirque du Soleil if he really wanted to be.
Oh, I absolutely don't want to see any more skin than I can already see of him.
2,100 more nurses. We've got 600 more doctors.
2,100 nurses, say it with us, whānau, still not enough.
Yeah.
In the Health New Zealand system than when we started. So there's lots of resources going in. We've put real clarity around targets. If you take emergency department.
It's not about the frickin' targets. You know, we've heard this before. It's not about the frickin' targets.
They dropped from almost 89% down to 67%.
We're talking about emergency departments.
Correct.
Here.
And that's what and so we're now seeing some improvement in actually people getting through emergency department wait lists. You would have seen just yesterday, I think day before yesterday, there was another $20 million put in immediately into emergency departments, as well as $100 million into
that's
hospital.
That's not new money, though, is it? That was money that was already allocated.
But it's money that is getting out the door to the places where it's supposed to get to some hotspots.
It's not enough. That's what doctors are doing.
I just say $17 billion, $1 in every 5, record spending from any government in the history of New Zealand, $33 billion going into healthcare.
All of that is exactly what we've said. Of course, it's the most because there's more people and you need more money. It's not to echo what Jordan said, you don't get to pat yourself on the back for having to do something.
Yeah.
I fed my kids breakfast this morning. It's what you do as a parent, you know, it's what you do. This is what you do as a government. This is nothing special, right? So you need to figure out how to solve this problem or get out of the way. And we'll talk more about that with Nicola Willis, perhaps getting out of the way shortly, but we'll do that after this.
A huge amount of money. So it's not a financial problem.
How much?
It's actually a bureaucracy problem of making sure that money gets through Health New Zealand, gets out to the patient ultimately, and we improve the wait list times that we're seeing.
Does it worry, though, that when we have ED doctors telling us that people are dying in emergency departments waiting for care?
It worries me tremendously, and that's why this government's put in place clear targets to focus the healthcare system, because it's not good enough to have 89% of people only getting EDs.
So can we say it again? It would appear that the targets are not enough. Still not working. You're putting a target in place. Well done. Congratulations, CEO talk. You can tick the box with we've said the right things at Luxon's Business School of New Zealand. But if the targets aren't being hit or the targets aren't enough, it's not enough. And you need to get better targets.
Also, how can anyone trust what he says in terms of the making sure the money gets to the patient? Isn't his government the a government that made up that fake list of all the people that something has to for a patient to get care, and they like listed chief of staff, CEO, team
The 6
member,
layers. Yeah.
the 6 layers, right?
Yeah.
Jesus.
And the other thing is, if you speak to any professional, we have Gary Payinda on fairly regularly, along with his own podcast each week. It's like the back room's been emptied, dude. You've done it. One of the reasons that this is taking longer for people to get through is there's no one to file those files away. You're making people actually who should just be focusing on patients focus on other things because you've emptied the back room. So if you're now still talking about money to the patients, who's going to go next? Who's going to stop? Who's the stoppage at the moment that you haven't already cleared out? Like, it's not enough. You're not doing enough. So fix it or get out of the way. How long, citizen? 454 days, something like that. Get out of the way, something like that.
Yeah.
Department support in a 6-hour window, dropping down to 67%. It dropped over 20 points in the space of the last government. We've now got focus on that. We're saying to everyone working in health, make sure you get ED wait times down, make sure you get specialist appointments down, first elective surgeries, cancer treatments, and immunisation rates for under 2. 5 very clear goals that we know if we can do those things and lift our performance, we'll get better health outcomes for Kiwis.
It was actually 14 layers, apology.
14 layers.
Yeah, and as we just said, one of the layers was patient. So one of the layers of bureaucracy they needed to get rid of was the patient.
Yeah, amazing.
There's plenty more stuff I want to talk about, but but this is all we're doing with the doctor stuff now. This is it. So if you want to comment on that, this is the time.
No, that's it. I mean, it's just been a layer cake of shit, hasn't it? I mean, it's because like we started with this government, and the first thing they did was the hiring freeze in medical medical institutions, right? Doctors and nurses. So like we've started there. It was a bad start, wasn't it?
We're being told by people in the industry that it's not technically a freeze because if they need 50 people in the hospital, they're allowed to hire 1. So the government can say, no, there's no freeze. It's like, but if we need 30 people and we can hire 2, that's actually not a solution to the problem of understaffing. Like if we need 30, we want to hire 30. That would then not be a freeze. So, yeah. All right, listen, we're going to come back to the breakfast show at some stage, but first of all, we're going to jump across to Big Herald News and have a listen to what they had to say. Now, I forget this gentleman's name. Someone will remind me in the chat very quickly because they're all smarter than me.
He's the guy without a beard.
He came across as a bit of a comrade today. He actually pushed Luxon on some of these things around GDP because the GDP numbers out last week were an abomination. 3 times as high as they were expecting. Calls
0.9%?
0.9, and they were expecting 0.3. Some places were expecting 0.4. So it was, and funny, when I was talking to Craig Rennie about this when we were recording his podcast, he actually said to me, we didn't record it, he was like, this is resignation kind of bad. And what have we been hearing about that since? We've been hearing about should Nicola Willis resign. This is quite a good segment and quite a good amount of pushback because Luxon has no introspection. You might be surprised to hear, Whānau. At no point does he go, like he gets asked a question in a second, how much of this lies at your feet? Won't do it, can't do it. And this is where the CEO comes out, the CEO of the product that's just had a recall. No, we stand by our product. It's just had a recall. Yep, but it'll be back out. We stand by it. It's still the best product. This is what you're hearing. You're hearing salesman pitch CEO talk when what they're selling is a pile of shit that's been recalled. That's their product, yet he's standing by it. Let's have a look, eh?
Do you accept some responsibility for the state of the economy right now?
Well, my job is to fix the economy. That's why I was elected.
No answer.
That is job number 1, is to get the economy growing again. We had good growth in the 6 months before Q2. On the second day of that second quarter, we had the Trump tariffs announced. That causes huge amounts of uncertainty, and as a result, that means that investors and people actually stop spending and they stop investing. And you've seen that with a loss of what's called confidence and sentiment in that second quarter.
Is it fair, though, to just blame everything on the tariffs?
Well, we're not, because we're doing everything we can.
Well, you are. Nicola Willis's stand-up last week, the word tariffs was said 13 times. You absolutely are blaming everything on the word tariff. But again, reporter, good pushback. He broached it a different way, asked the same question. Well done.
We've delivered, good spending control, which has led to lower inflation, lower
That's
interest
called
rates,
cuts.
and we've given tax relief to New Zealanders. We've got our primary industries having record years, which is fantastic for our exporters. Great if you're in the South Island, Bay of Plenty, rural communities.
Have there been any
We've got some
missteps,
challenges.
Have there been any missteps, do you
Third
think,
time.
in your
Third
leadership
time.
or by your
Well, I think we've got the
government?
right economic plan. I mean, we've inherited a situation with
Sorry, hang on. Sorry. Now, I apologise, Fano. I'm sure some of you have seen it. You may even have sent it out, Jordan. There was a graph going around as to everyone's GDP, and it was all on the positive side, and then down at the bottom was New Zealand on the negative side. So if we've got the right plan, right? If it's the right plan, if we've got it, if we're going with the right plan, why are the results so bad? That's like going, my diet's going really well. You've put on 20 kilos. Yeah, my diet's going really, but you've put on 20 kilos. No, I stand by my diet. My diet's going really well. I don't think the reality of the world and what you're saying, those things don't equate. They're different.
They never have for Luxon. The reality of the world, he just doesn't even acknowledge it.
We'll play this. This has got about 40 seconds to go.
By your
Well, I think we've got the right economic plan. I mean, we've inherited a situation with the biggest recession for 35 years, the longest COVID hangover of any of the Western economies, and we're dealing with a difficult global trading environment. Having said all of
that no other country is dealing with, by the way.
Yeah,
like
apparently.
we're dealing with it. It's called tariffs. Australia, better. Canada. We're going to play a bit about Canada in a second. Better.
China, Japan, United Kingdom, United States.
And if our top trading partner is China, that's our biggest market. Why does tariffs from America tip us over so much? Yes, that's going to make some things that we trade more difficult, but they're not our biggest trading partner. Yeah. So surely we should be somewhat isolated. Like if the US was your biggest trading partner, hi Canada, maybe you'd have a leg to stand on, but they're not. They might be big, but they're not the biggest, which means we should have an offset. We shouldn't be hit. We should not be hit by Trump's tariffs as hard as, say, for example, Canada, where America is the number one trading partner. But guess what? We're getting hit worse. This equation's not quite adding up.
Well, past Nicola and past Luxon would agree, because they both said prior that they don't think that the tariffs would affect us very much. They're both very positive about it at the beginning.
Well, and also remember, past Nicola Willis and past Christopher Luxon would not allow the Labor government to have international pressures impact their economy. Everything around COVID. No, sorry. Yeah. You don't get to use international pressures. Sorry, Prime Minister Hipkins. But apparently now international pressures is just a hand wave just to get rid of everything. Just goodbye.
We are now growing again this quarter. We're projected to strengthen before Christmas again. We have a huge number of New Zealanders about to refinance their mortgages within the next 6 months. That will give them a lot more injection of cash into their back pockets. So I think we're doing all the right things, and we're still looking for things like major events funds where we can accelerate it, accelerating infrastructure projects to get construction and building moving again. So we're doing everything we can, pulling all the levers to make sure that we are maximising growth and creating the conditions for growth to take forward.
So, but then, look, logic would dictate if you are doing everything you can, then you are the wrong person for this job. Because what you're saying, if what you're saying is there is literally nothing else we can do, and your results are so bad, then it's time to go away. Like if you said there's some other levers we can pull, he wouldn't say that, because first of all, that would be like, why haven't you pulled them already? But if he was being honest and saying there's a couple of others levers we can pull, you'd go, okay, well, pull those and then we'll see what's happening. But you've said we've done everything we can and we're getting these terrible results. You are not the man for this job anymore. Jordan?
No, you're right. Since the beginning, this man has been saying he's been doing the best he can. And so I think if this is the best he can, well, it's not bloody good enough. Yeah. I think he's explaining himself out of the job. Your best sucks. Get out.
Yeah. We talked a bit about Canada, and back to breakfast, Jenny May actually asked him about Canada. The exact point being, tariffs should impact Canada far more than us, shouldn't they? And we'll have a listen to what he said about that.
Canada's economy, which is even more exposed to the US, they shrank 0.4% in the last quarter, while ours shrank 0.9%, right? Doesn't that suggest that something local was happening here as opposed to just blaming it on US tariffs?
What's happening is actually our bilateral exports are actually to the US are actually been growing, I think, about 6%, 7% this year, which is really quite good. So the issue is that as a small country, we are more impacted than, say, a medium or a large size country. We always have been, always will be. We're basically a little boat out there in a bigger ocean sailing away, and we get smacked around by some of the turbulence that's out there. So that's not unexpected. And as a result, for New Zealand, when so much of our economy is tied up in trade, when you get globally, people actually are saying, look, this is very, what is going on with these tariffs? What does all this mean? And remember how that felt back in April when it was first announced, how much uncertainty there was. People just need some time to digest that. We now have clarity about what all that means, and we're learning to deal with that. The good news is that New Zealand's exports to the US, our exporters who are largely red meat, wine, and a little bit of dairy, are actually doing really well.
So
what was the question? Jesus Christ, he just keeps talking.
The thing about that is imagine being the Prime Minister and trying to sell our exports doing so well and only being able to list 2 items and then sort of a third one, red meat, wine, a little bit of dairy. That's it. That's what you're standing out your economic success on. He also said we're a littler boat in this big ocean. Now that's true, but the thing about being a littler boat, right, put that back in dollar terms, a littler business, is actually it should be easier to get to profitability, because when you're bigger, the economies of scale sometimes make life harder to reach profit. So actually there's actually no downside about being a littler boat, because it also means your expenses are littler. It means your outgoings are littler. It's proportional. You know what I mean? And I know economies of scale might make an individual product cheaper, but being little and small and maneuverable and flexible actually could give a lot of benefit if someone knew what they were doing, Jordan.
Also, we're not newly a littler boat. We were a littler boat under Chris Hipkins. We were a littler boat under Jacinda Ardern. We're a littler boat. We've always been there. Why is it so hard now, apparently? Only an issue.
And I mean, this is constantly what we're saying, like, going back to the last government, they wouldn't allow them to, when they talk about inflation and what they did to inflation, and you look at the inflation all around the world and it was identical, and you're like, oh, so how did Jacinda ruin the inflation in Canada out of interest? Like, what did she do? That was, but no, you have to take responsibility for it no matter what happens. Like when the price of petrol started to go through the roof, we actually said, look, I agree with you guys that there are international pressures. We agree with that. But what we do in this show is we're going to hold you accountable to the same standard you held the last lot to, or to the standard you set for yourself. And you would not allow the last lot to go international pressure as part of the reason. So we're not going to, because you wouldn't, and that would be hypocritical. The last part about this conversation, though, is this absolute perler. I think this all came out on Friday, so we missed it in our regular kind of Monday to Thursday show. I don't think the kids picked up on it. Former Finance Minister Sir Roger Douglas calls for Finance Minister Nicola Willis to resign. I'll read you a bit of this from Stuff. Is it Stuff? Oh, no, it's RNZ, sorry, from RNZ. Former Finance Minister Roger Douglas is calling for Finance Minister Nicola Willis to resign, but she says their solution is not needed. He and University of Auckland Matthew Abel Chair of Macroeconomics Robert McCulloch said the contraction in GDP revealed by Stats NZ on Thursday was because Willis was sending New Zealand bankrupt by failing to get to grips with our ballooning fiscal deficits and public debt. Her own treasury contradicts her claim that New Zealand is on the path to surplus. It's not. Treasury's long-term fiscal forecasts show out-of-control deficits due to pensions and healthcare spending from an ageing population, they said in a statement. Willis is not up to the job and is not levelling with the New Zealand public. Now, we see this and we hear this and we think that doesn't sound very good. And then you put on top of it $23 billion taken out of our combined bank account with landlord reimbursements, with tax cuts, and with $1 billion to big tobacco, for God's sake.
Tobacco companies.
What that $23 billion could do to how, like if that was just put into the bank for retirement, then we wouldn't have this massive deficit that Roger Douglas is talking about. And just before I throw it across to you, Jordan, I think it's quite important also to portray once again the CEO Prime Minister. Remember, he sold his CEO-ness as a positive, but also if you're the CEO of a company and that company is failing, you can't acknowledge it's failing. If you're the CEO of a company and what you've marketed has been proven to be a lead-based product and it has to be recalled, you still have to stay positive about it. I challenge you to watch Christopher Luxon from Friday night talking about Nicola Willis in any other way than a CEO talking about damaged goods and trying to big it up. So this is when he was asked about it on Friday.
Nicola Willis is the best finance minister New Zealand is ever going to have. She's an outstanding person. She's an outstanding finance minister, economic growth minister. She's doing an exceptionally good job in a very tough situation, and I totally back her.
Christopher Luxon.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, you know, what is the saying from Shakespeare? Methinks the lady doth protesteth too much.
Yeah,
a little bit, maybe a bit OTT. Maybe some of your ninth floor PR spin needs to go, you know, sometimes less is more, sir. Sometimes less is more. You don't have to go over the top because that looks disingenuous. Thoughts, Jordan?
Luxon in the past few weeks has started talking about Nicola Willis the same way he used to talk about soap. I don't know if anyone's ever seen that clip of him selling man soap for men, because apparently, according to Christopher Luxon, men have bigger hands, so we can't hold little soap. We have to have big soap. And it's a sell he was giving, and that's why Unilever loved him so much, because he will commit 100% to a sell, even if it's a crap car or something as stupid as man soap. But that's how he's talking about Nicola at the moment. Like, he's kind of completely detached. He doesn't know what else to say other than just giving pure praise for it. But yeah, he's lost it, man.
It does kind of feel a bit like, you know, the CEO who has handpicked the two IC. And because they've handpicked the two IC, remember prior to the last election when they were talking about negotiations, the only position that was absolutely non-negotiable is Nicola Willis for finance minister. Yeah. So he's handpicked her. So her failure is his failure, right? Because he made it very clear that he wasn't going to get into any negotiations over that. There wasn't going to be anything other than Nicola Willis. So she is his protege, for want of a better word. She is his hand-selected choice for who is going to turn this economy around, and she is failing, which means he is failing. If you open the door, Mr. Luxon, whatever breaks, you own. The system's broken, Nicola Willis is broken, the economy is broken, you own it. But he's a CEO, you know, you don't admit defeat, you don't say you're wrong, you don't apologize, you just keep going.
I hope we learn from this, and I hope the advancements of social media lets us record how ridiculous this whole ordeal of the Luxon government has been. I hope people remember going forward how stupid it was to put in place a CEO millionaire landlord as a prime minister, because I remember at the beginning of the election people talked about having a CEO, he's so good at running a company, yada yada yada. Now one ever stops to think about what makes a good CEO. The metrics that we use of good CEOs, the best CEOs in the world, we don't measure them in order of how well they treated their staff. We don't measure them in order of how prosperous they allowed their communities to be. We measure them in order of how much money they made the company and their donors, people, stakeholders within that. And now we have a CEO prime minister who's just doing the exact thing. New Zealanders, all of us, we're just workers in a company that, unlike in New Zealand, he can't just fire a bunch straight at the beginning to save money. We all stay here. And unfortunately, we just end up on the streets. But that is, I hope we learn about that going forward. Also, has there ever been a government that has had so many previous MPs and prime ministers come out against it? Because we've had Jenny Shipley with the regulatory standards bill. We've had Helen Clark speak on a number of things. Sir Geoffrey Palmer is now writing a book, suddenly inspired, called Saving New Zealand's Democracy. Is that the name of the book?
Something like that.
No. And now we had the mother of all budgets come forward. Now Roger of all people. It's abysmal, and it's embarrassing.
What you've said is really important to remember. We talked about that lots before the election. You do not run a country like you run a business. No. Legally, by law, if you're running a business, you must make it as profitable as possible if you have shareholders. You're not allowed to make decisions to lose money. It's against the law. It's a pecuniary interest situation set up there. So, well, I should say it this way. You're not allowed to without consultation of the shareholders. Like if there was a reason you take a hit for 1 year. So you're not allowed to tank the stock, you know? And this is the example I said from day one. If you were running a country like a business, you'd be focusing on profit. Guess what? Libraries, it's not very profitable. You know, lots of services aren't very profitable. So he would say probably, of course, we're not going to get rid of libraries. And I said, well, then you're not running the country like a business. So let's put that away now. You can't have it both ways. You can't go, well, I'd be good at making deals, which you're not, Remember,
Yeah.
David Seymour admitted that the actual Treaty Principles Bill wasn't a bottom line, yet you folded to it immediately. So you're not a good negotiator. And way back when this started off, one of our quote lines, Jordan, was not a businessman, just a board member. He's touting his business nous, whereas I think about someone with business nous that would be sort of usable in a public setting as someone who started their own business, who grew it, who employed people, who then franchised it, who made it bigger. He didn't do any of that. He was in sales and marketing, and then he went to the boardroom. I don't consider that to be a businessman. I consider that to be a board member. And so I don't know why we, being the country, were fooled, and I don't know why he thinks it's a good line, to be the CEO, Prime Minister, because it's not. Because this is not. We're not a company. We're not a company.
No. And he's just so out of touch as well, CEO millionaire. What's this thing? Oh, I have it. He posted 7 things to smile about. Do you see this? It is the most out of touch thing. So keep in mind, people can't afford groceries. People are living on the streets. People are living in cars. He put 7 things to smile about. Number 1, 132 years since New Zealand became the first nation to give women the vote. Right, but then you cancelled pay equity claims. It said the maximum family boost increased from 3,900 to 6,240. Can't point to a single family that got the whole thing. Our card surcharge ban has passed its first reading. Right, but then that just drives up the prices of actual food. It just has no... And then this whole thing is going on about rural confidence. Like, brilliant. People can't afford butter. People can't afford bread. People living on the streets. But hey, thank God there are some farmers that are feeling good about themselves. It's just such a non-thing. But this man is so out of touch that he's toting these things around. Oh, you've got it.
George Beamish and Hamish Kerr won gold at the World Athletics Champ. See, he's even trying to get reflected glory from other stuff.
It's got nothing to do with them. It's insane. That thing we launched a major events fund, which means more awesome concerts and events near you. No, it doesn't. The people in Gore are still getting the same amount of events that they've always gotten.
It's always funny to read the comments, eh? So the first comment, one-term government, big smile about that. and then exactly what you said, 132 years later than women gained a pay equity cut.
God.
They even try to claim daylight savings, probably the only savings National's done the whole time. Honestly, people are very funny online.
It's brilliant.
The only thing I care about there is the daylight savings, yay. Oh, and the countdown to the next elections. 1, yes, women will be able to vote you out. Oh my God, this is brutal.
Oh,
I'm just going through one by one. So that's 7 pros. What about the cons?
Yeah.
Man, that goes on. 1 week until daylight savings, you're a week behind. I've always said with Chewie, I'd like to do this bit with Chewie. Would it take organising, which is why I haven't done it, which is like the hidden comments section. Whereas maybe because on YouTube we've got filters on there which are all automated and they don't let some chats through. But occasionally I go and have a look at them and they're fucking hilarious, man. They're so funny, and they're just people trying to be mean and that kind of stuff. And I thought maybe we should start up a feature like every Thursday that we have the unpublished comment section, and just once a week put a whole bunch of them up. They're pretty funny.
I think so. There's some gold out there.